Welcome back, writers, and happy Tuesday. Super excited to get started with our realistic fiction writing in this first session. And we've really been working hard on writing that realistic fiction or understanding realistic fiction for the purpose of writing after yesterday. And we're going to really move forward with that and talk about what we can do. So we've already worked hard on realistic fiction with reading. We're starting to read a lot of books that have realistic fiction elements in there, and that's only going to help us as we work taking this journey to become a good realistic fiction writer and think about things in the mind as writers. So we might not think of ourselves at the elementary level or even in myself as a teacher to be like professional fiction writers, but our goal is by the end of this unit to feel like really confident and understand we can be a great fiction writer. We can write really good realistic fiction stories by working on our skills and honing our skills throughout this whole unit. So we're super excited to get started today and start talking about how do authors come up with ideas for their fiction stories, right? So believe it or not, even professional authors, they're not able to just go in. I mean, maybe a few of them, but for the most part, authors don't go in and just start writing a story, right? Most people take the process and they really think about the things they're going to base stories on, and they think about how they're going to create a character and what they're going to do to start that story. So authors, they don't just start writing from thin air, right? They don't just come up with characters, amazing characters right off the top of their head. Most of them base stories on their actual own lives and experiences. So even though the story's not exactly what happened in the real life, it's based on that. They use things that they've experienced or things that they've had happen in their lives, and they write a fictional or a made-up story with interesting characters based on those events. And so we're going to look at doing that ourselves today. So it does not mean, I want to clarify, this does not mean writers write stories about their own life, right? They don't directly write about their own life. We call that a personal narrative. A personal narrative is when you write a story about something that really did happen. And that's when it becomes nonfiction, right? If it's a real story and it's true and all the events really happened, that's a story, but it's actually nonfiction. It's not a fiction story. It's not made up. So authors use something that did happen to create a made up character and a made up story, okay? So it's important to understand the difference between telling a true story and using your own experience to make up a story and create a story. Those are two completely different things. If I go to the beach and I write a story about everything I did on the beach with my family, that's a narrative. That's a personal narrative. That's a story that's true. If I take that and I notice somebody doing something silly on the beach and then I write a story about a character who does silly things on the beach, that is a made up fiction story that could really happen. And so there's a clear difference. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So I started to think, how can I come up with some story ideas? Think about the special memories or the experiences I've had in my own life. And I came up with 4 that I thought would be kind of good things to write a story about. So the first one was moving to a new school when I was in 5th grade. And I could picture writing a story about somebody who moves to a new school and some of the challenges they have to go through as they move in a new school, right? I also had spending time with my grandpa. He was just somebody he was very important to me growing up, and I spent a lot of time with him, and I have very strong memories of things that he and I did together growing up when I was in like elementary school. And so writing a story about somebody who has a special person in their life, again, not me writing about my grandpa, but writing a story about somebody with a special person and kind of using my grandfather as the inspiration for that could be a good story. I also thought about when I won the sectional championship in high school baseball. It was just a really cool moment in my life. I can remember it exactly how it went down and everything that happened in vivid detail. And I could write a similar story about someone who wins a sports championship or plays a sport, or maybe somebody who gets really close and ends up not winning a championship and think of a lesson they could learn from that, right? Based on what happened to me, but I'm not writing a story about my sectional championship. And then the last one I had was, I can remember, oh my gosh, guys, when I was in 3rd grade, I was in the middle of the cafeteria, and we had like these really hard, big, heavy plastic lunch trays. And I was walking through the middle of the cafeteria, and I like looked another way, and I kind of stumbled, and I dropped this tray, and it made this super loud noise right in the middle. We had this big tile floor, and like everyone in the cafeteria turned and just like glared at me. And and the food was everywhere. And that's just like this memory. It was embarrassing, and I just remember it in such detail that I think that would be something good. We've all had that happen to us, right? Where something happens and we feel a little silly and embarrassed. It's something probably a lot of people could relate to, and I think it'd be a good story to write. Maybe about a clumsy 4th grader that had something happen to them and, you know, trying to get over that embarrassment and make something for themselves. So moving forward, I'm not just talking about my things. So let's move forward and talk about how can I turn those memories into a story. So I just talked about how dropping my lunch tray, it says tran, let me fix that. There's a typo. I hate it when that happens. There's a lunch tray in the middle of the cafeteria, right? That's what happened to me. So my story idea is based on that. It could be about a clumsy student who has to get over being embarrassed by certain things, right? It could be about a student who feels embarrassed and is comforted by a good friend who helps them feel better about what happened, right? So something like that, where I take what happened to me and I use a story about it. It doesn't mean the clumsy student story has to be about dropping a lunch tray in the middle of the cafeteria floor, right? It could just be about a student who stumbles and falls in the classroom or something that happens repeatedly to them. And then how does that become a problem for them and how does it get fixed, right? So I'm not really trying to sit down and write my whole story right now. I'm just trying to think about what could be a basis of a story I'm writing, like just some starting ideas. And so really, I just went through the last page. I could probably think of one for all of those, but this is the one that I really remember sticking out a lot and something I think a lot of people could relate to. They've probably all had it happen. So that's probably a good idea for my story. So your job today and tomorrow, so you have to have this work done by Wednesday. There's nothing to turn in today, but by Wednesday, you need to create a list of different story ideas. And on Wednesday, so tomorrow, you're going to post the list of the ideas you came up with on Canvas as a text submission, or you can record yourself reading through the ideas you wrote down in your reader's notebook, okay? I want to remind you one more time. It's not a story about you, okay? You're not writing a story about you. So you're not saying things like, I remember when. No, you're going to be writing a story about a character you make up, and it's a made-up story, okay? So you can relate what happened to you in real life, but that is not your story, okay? Look forward to seeing what you guys can come up with. Again, it's due on Wednesday, so there's nothing to turn in today. You can do the work today, so tomorrow all you have to do is get on and submit the assignment, or you can wait till tomorrow and do the work tomorrow since you viewed the lesson today. That's completely your choice. But on Wednesday, you need to either put it in a text submission or record yourself saying it and submit it on Canvas. We look forward to seeing what kind of ideas you guys come up with, and then look forward to seeing you back on Thursday for the next lesson about realistic fiction story writing. Thank you.